from Tammy saying, we're looking forward to your presentation tomorrow. And oh my goodness, I actually thought this was going to be a podcast and I was just going to sit back, relax and answer questions. So here's what I've got for you since around 2 a.m. this morning, my time. First, I want to tell you what I do. Then I'm going to talk to you briefly about the world of real estate crowdfunding. And then I'm going to get into how that world has changed. We are going to talk about the real estate syndication vortex. Now, what my company does is we build crowdfunding. I'll keep this super brief because we've not got enough time and I've got a lot more to talk about. It's my background, actually. I go back to 1982 and I started pulling wires for an electrician, ended up raising capital for a ground-up multifamily shop in the 80s, a lot of money. That all evaporated during the savings and loan crisis. I ended up moving to Japan, where I headed up Asia Pacific for Universal Studios, doing all their real estate development. Came back here, did my own developments and sold out in 2007. OMG. I got lucky. It was nothing brilliant. I just got lucky. I sold, something was going on. It made me uncomfortable. I sold out. So I was brought into East West Bank, one of the largest regional banks headquartered in California. They'd done billions of dollars of lending to all collateralized by real estate, commercial real estate, no single family. I never dealt with single family. My job was to help them clean their balance sheet by selling non-performing loans collateralized by real estate. I did about $1 billion of that when I was at East West Bank. And then I went over to Colony Capital, who at the time were the third largest private equity real estate shop in the world. And they had bought $7 billion or so of non-performing notes from failed banks in partnership with the FDIC. And my job was divestments of those portfolios, workouts and divestments. Since then, getting really to the point, I have built a business where what we do is we build I won't tell you why. There's a million places where you can find out the whole story online. My company builds crowdfunding platforms for sponsors so that they can go out and find accredited investors, typically, to syndicate their deals. Our clients manage in excess of $35 billion of AUM and have raised around $1 billion from individual investors using our systems, right? So that's kind of, in a nutshell, my background, where I come from. Now, what is crowdfunding? Well, crowdfunding during the Jobs Act leveled the playing field for investors, for passive investors, and for sponsors, for that matter. Pre-Jobs Act of 2012, there was no transparency. It was prohibited for sponsors to solicit investments from somebody they didn't already know. As a consequence of that, there were these little pockets of investors all over the world. Thank you, Alex. I've got punctuation points here at the bottom. Thanks very much. Now, what about general solicitation? You can go ahead and define that as well. So what the Jobs Act did was it allowed for general solicitation, which basically meant you could now advertise. So as soon as that happened, the world changed for both sponsors and for investors. Let's call them GPs, general partners, and LPs going forward. So it changed for GPs and for LPs in the sense that now this industry that had been hidden behind closed doors suddenly became very transparent. You could go online and can today go online and look at thousands of syndication. You can look at syndications. You can look at all of their offering documents. And hey, presto, you can, for the first time in history, you can know what are market terms for preferred returns, for promote structures, for fees, etc. Became very visible. Consequently, so that's basically what it did: leveled the playing field and made transparent an industry that had really been hidden behind closed doors historically. Okay, now both Jeff and Chris have commented that they've seen it, they've heard of it, they're not really sure is there much of it. The world has changed in the last 18 months. Suddenly we have gone from zero interest rate or sub 3% interest rates, sub 3 cap acquisitions. Oh my goodness, these prices are insane. To north of 7%. We have clients who are looking down the barrel of 10, 11% refinances from traditional sources. So nobody's okay. So now what happened over the last few years with crowdfunding, and I use the term loosely, it's basically just online syndication. And by the way, if anybody else doesn't mind using their camera, I do like to see facial expressions. I want to know if you're falling asleep or if you're nodding in appreciation or if you got questions. It is good to see faces. Thank you. So what that did over the last few years is it drew into the industry, into commercial real estate investing and into syndication, thousands upon thousands of novice investors, people who had never been in real estate before, either as developers, as GPs, or as LPs. So there's a whole new world of people who have never seen a downturn. OMG. I've seen two major ones, lost everything in the first one, sold out before the next one. I've seen every way that a deal can go wrong. And what that means is that for the first time, all of these newcomers to the industry are seeing a downturn for the first time. Sponsors, they don't know how to act. Right? You suddenly run out of money, you go into a state of panic, right? And so what they do typically is clam up and stop communicating. They're fighting fires. They're trying to get ahead of the curve. They don't want anyone to know that they're having problems for fear. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I mean, where are you seeing this at? Is this just big? So you're seeing this everywhere, or is this just predominantly? Because I'll tell you, on the residential side, I'm not seeing it as much.
Single family homes you're talking about?
I'm sorry?
Single family homes?
Yeah, I'm not seeing as much distress.
So single family homes is a completely different dynamic, because single family homes, you've got a frozen market. I don't want to get too deep into this, Chris, but I will address that point. Single family homes, you've got a frozen market because interest rates have gone up. People are locked into sub 3% interest rates on 30-year fixed mortgages. They're unwilling to sell to move, even if they want to downgrade, right? Or they're overhoused because their kids moved out. They want to buy a smaller house. Economically, it makes no sense because you buy a smaller house and it's going to cost you the same because now you're paying a 7% interest rate. So the single family market has frozen up. It's a significant problem. And as a consequence of that, supply is down and prices are being kept artificially high. It's unusual. If you look at Canada or the UK, there you're seeing massive declines.
Time now, though. I mean, considerably long time. Inventory has been low. Developers have not been keeping up with, the pace of growth. My point is that we've seen this for a while. I completely agree with everything about interest rate. Although I will say what you're saying implies a logical brain, a logical market. And anytime I do that, I don't always get the result I think, because life happens and people, even with a low interest rate, have to live it and get promoted, get divorced, die. All these things happen and sales happen anyway.
Okay, so I am not addressing the single family home market. This is strictly commercial real estate.
That's right. That was my point.
So when you come in as an LP, we could definitely talk about single family home market. That is not the agenda for today. I'm happy to pick that up another time, anytime you like, Chris.
Last question to two, because multifamily tends to kind of fit in between. I mean, you got commercial, and most people say multifamily is commercial. Are you seeing in the multifamily, which has more ties to single family in terms of inventory spillover and things like that? So are you seeing syndicators that are specific to multifamily also struggling?
I will tell you right now, Chris, between whether you are hearing about it or not, this is what I'm going to go into. Whether you're hearing about it or not, is exactly the point I'm making. Sponsors clam up, especially novice sponsors who have not gone through a downturn before. And so you are not hearing about it. Probably between 70 and 80% of all commercial real estate syndications that have gone out, especially in the last 2 to 3 years, are struggling financially. Whether they have signaled that yet or not is a different matter, and that's what we're going to get into. But between 70 and 80%. Now, there are some signs. There are some signs of pain in the market. Tides, for example, Nightingale, for example, and others that are major indicators that there is trouble. They're the first ones that have emerged. They are the tip of the iceberg. Rest assured, or rest unassured, or whatever. Don't rest assured. Between 70 to 80% of syndicated deals are having financial problems now. And if you've not heard about it yet, and if you are an LP, you will be hearing about it. And I'm going to go through exactly what the continuum is that you got to be looking for. So sponsors don't know how to act. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to structure the capital calls. So this is technical, I know, but they don't know how to structure the capital calls. I'm going to get into that in a minute. And there is no market data in the same way as suddenly you can go online after the Jobs Act and see hundreds or thousands of deals to understand what are market terms for preferred returns, for promotes, for fees, etc. Capital calls are still under the surface, so there's no market data. Right. So what are we doing here at GowerCrowd? Well, we are the solution. We are providing a solution to this lack of knowledge. We're putting together a series of high-level training. Liz, maybe something we end up talking to Scott about. High-level training with sponsors who have been through it before, who understand how to act during a downturn, and the ramifications of not acting the right way during a downturn, and attorneys and others who have been through these cycles before, and putting together a white paper. We're interviewing them, and we're creating an educational program so you can determine as an investor or as a sponsor exactly what are market terms and conditions as a baseline for understanding how to, as a sponsor, as a GP, how to structure a capital call to maximize the chance that you do raise capital from existing investors, and as an LP to know whether or not a capital call that you're getting from a sponsor is a good choice to invest in. Is it good money after bad? So that is the kind of background to what I want to talk about. And sorry if this isn't exactly down your fairway. As long as there's one person for whom it is down the fairway, like Jeff, I can see him nodding. And so I'd like to see some other faces. Like, is everyone falling asleep here? Matthew just came off mute. Oh no, he accidentally came off mute. Maybe he was there. You go. Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate you showing your face. It really makes a difference. All right, so here is a little magic trick. This is what I've got for you. I'm going to run through this. Boink. All right, so this is what I ended up doing at 2 a.m. this morning. Have I got my camera in the right spot? Let me just check, see where my hand is. Yeah, it looks like it is. I don't know how well.
Good.
Can you see this okay?
It's a little small, but we can see it.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm actually going to redo this so that it's on slide format so you can see it better. But this is what I've been working on. I'm going to explain exactly what we've got here. Okay, so I'm going to present to you now the real estate syndication vortex. Right? What is a vortex? Why are we in a vortex? So let's start over here. When crowdfunding, when the Jobs Act, and by the way, I've got my jacket on here in a feeble attempt to hide my 19 extra pounds from 3 years sitting at home on my own during COVID. What happened during, subsequent to the Jobs Act was that now investors are able, sponsors or GPs are able to advertise. They can do online marketing to raise capital for their deals. So this is what we do. For the first time in history, GPs, sponsors can go out and they can raise capital online. And so what they need to do that, and this is what we build for our clients, what they need to do that is they need a highly educational website. By the way, this structure that I'm drawing for you over here, this is called a marketing funnel, right? Just to use a marketing term, it's a funnel. And the idea of and at the top of the funnel is your website, which has a lot of educational content. And then you push out your messaging on social media. So LinkedIn, Twitter, /X, and Facebook are kind of the primary ones to do this. And then you might also do paid advertising. So if you are a fan of Facebook, for example, or you go on Google, you're going to see ads encouraging you to invest in deals on those platforms. So what a sponsor was doing is they were filling their funnel, and this is my attempt at a picture of a funnel, filling their funnel with leads, potential investors in their deals. And then what they do is once somebody enters a funnel, which might mean that they sign up for a newsletter with their name and email address, right? Once somebody signs up for a newsletter or in response to some kind of marketing, then that sponsor nurtures and eventually pitches that prospect. And the more the prospect learns about that, about the sponsor, the further down the funnel they go. And the reason it's described like a funnel is that up here you're looking at millions times 100, right? You're looking at hundreds of millions of people having access to your content online. And as people start moving through your funnel, their relationship with you, called the investor journey, fewer and fewer people go deeper and deeper into your funnel until eventually they invest with you. And only a tiny, tiny proportion of people actually invest with a sponsor, despite having millions of people being exposed to your message. And that creates a reservoir of investors. If you do the right thing by those investors, they will invest with you again and again and again, right? This is a classic funnel structure to attract investors into deals that you have or that a sponsor has to capitalize the deal.
Basically, you're just talking about accredited investors in this case.
Accredited. So typically we deal only with accredited investors, but the principle of a funnel applies to 100% really of every kind of marketing you see online. For these pens to cars to anything, all right? The funnel concept is, this is how digital marketing works. It's actually how all marketing works and has done for over 150 years, right? You go back. This is the same structure. I'm just explaining it now because what has happened? Well, what's happened with interest rates doubling or more, with insurance rates going 4 times what they were, with expenses going up, with rents flattening or coming down, is that suddenly all of these super optimistic, confident sponsors, 70 to 80% of them, who have been active in the market for the last at least, say, 2 to 3 years, suddenly they have cash crises. And so what has happened is a funnel, which is a kind of a voluntary process. You put marketing materials out there and people enter your funnel voluntarily and decide whether or not they're going to invest with you on a voluntary, anonymous basis. Now what has happened? Now they've been sucked in to a vortex, a cash vortex, because now it has gone from, hey, look how you make money, to heck, we might lose all the money you invested. We need solutions to that right now. And that is the capital call conundrum that sponsors and investors are facing today. And if you haven't seen it yet, you will, right? In fact, after this call, you're going to see it because you're going to see more about it in the news. It's going to jump out. It's going to become more apparent to you. So now we have this vortex where sponsors, GPs, suddenly have run out of capital. So the first thing that they have to do is, or the first sign of that is, if you're a passive investor in a deal, the first sign of that, my blue has gone away. I don't know where my blue is. The first thing that happens and the first sign of problems is distributions stop. So those quarterly or monthly distributions you were getting, they stop. The second thing that happens, and that is a sure sign of serious problems. Now, what you need to be doing if you are a sponsor, you need to be, where is my big word? Here it is. I'm going to show it up here. The key to success is communication, transparent, open, honest communication that is significantly more than you've done before. All right, we can get into the reasons why later, but you have to start communicating. Unfortunately, what happens is that sponsors typically, especially novice sponsors who have not been through this before, they clam up, they stop communicating. So the first sign that you might have of a problem is maybe not even distributions. Let's actually put it up here. Where can I put it? It could be down here. Here, crickets, right? The first thing that happens is you start to hear crickets from your sponsor. In other words, they go quiet, they go silent. Then you start getting distribution stopped. The next phase of now this is a continuum. The next phase of the process of this continuum, this capital call continuum, is that a sponsor then makes a capital call. So they now look at their contracts and you go back and you pull out of a drawer, right, that contract that you signed to make your investment 3 years ago or 2 years ago, and you look to see what are the terms for a capital call. You probably didn't even think about it when you invested because everything was rosy. So now you take a look. And the sponsor takes a look and they see, okay, and I'll just give you some basic terms, kind of classic terms, might be, you may be, and this can be mandatory or voluntary, by the way, but you may be required to, in the event we run out of money, they don't say it that way, but in the event we need to make a capital call, you may be asked for up to 100% of your original investment again. So if you invested 50,000, your contract may say you may be obliged to invest another 50 at some point in the future if we run out of money. And if you don't come up with that extra 50,000 or that whatever amount it is, percentage of your original investment, you will be diluted. Your interest in that project will be diluted. All right. Now, that is phase 2. Look at the contracts and see what was agreed at the outset. And so a sponsor's first instinct is to go to their sponsor, to go to their LPs and say, here are the terms of the contract. This is what you agreed with. This is how much you owe us, right? Right. I'm being very crude. And by the way, what I will tell you, I see Jeff, and I'm not sure if he's laughing a little bit. I've actually had somebody forward an email to me from a sponsor that says exactly that. They went silent for 6 months, and the first email said, pursuant to clause 3.0.1, you now owe us $50,000 or we're going to dilute you. That was the first point of contact in the communication. Big fail, right? We'll get into that again in a minute. Okay, now, what happens if that next stage, this stage here, where the capital call is made pursuant to agreed terms, and it fails? They don't raise enough money. Well, now we go to number 3, step 3, what is called loosely rescue capital. So now the sponsor is thinking, if I don't get money for this, if I can't fill the short gap or the gap that I've got, I'm going to lose this property to the bank and I'm going to be wiped out. The LPs are going to be wiped out. Everyone's going to be wiped out. So now they go to rescue capital, typically mezz debt, preferred equity, etc. I'm talking, whoever was putting definitions down, sorry to bombard you. I'm happy to follow up with anyone in more detail. What's he got there? They always are if you don't want to be diluted. Right. So anyway, third step is rescue capital. Now, rescue capital terms are really tough terms. Basically, what rescue capital is going to look like, and I'll do this in red. The first thing, think of the capital stack, actually. Where's my black? Is this it? Here. So think of the capital stack. I'll just draw this here. And I like to draw a oh gosh, this pen's no good. Oh my God, it's in my hand. It's like trying to find my glasses. Right, so the capital stack looks like this, okay? Typically, you've got your first position loan. That's the bank over there. And then just to keep this really, really simple, then you have the equity, right? This is the equity. So this is your LP money is here, right? So that's the equity. So if the bank takes the property back, the equity gets wiped out, everybody loses. Rescue capital comes in and it says, that's very nice that you've got all that money in LPs, but our money is going to go in here. All right, let's call that RC, rescue capital. That means that any profit that comes out for their money, any profit that comes out of the deal has to satisfy the terms that they impose on the deal first before limited partners get anything. And that typically means limited partners are wiped out because the terms that a rescue capital deal offer is going to have are, and these are, again, this is what I'm working through with this educational program. I'm also learning, right, from this process. Nobody's really been through this before in the same way that it's been so transparent. But rescue capital, where have I got it? Rescue capital will often look for 15% returns, up to 100% of the promote. They will also want, and I won't try and write anything more on the page here. They will also want control rights. So they will want to be able to take over the project. They will want major decision rights. So you can't take on debt, you can't sell, right? You can't write checks over $10,000 without our approval. They'll want look-in rights to bank accounts. I mean, they are taking over the project. Now, the way that they may incentivize the sponsor to say yes is they'll say to the sponsor, okay, you can keep some of your fees and you can retain anything from 5 to 50% of any profit after we've got our return. So those are really tough terms. So the question that a sponsor wants to ask is, at what point do they offer rescue capital terms to their existing limited partners? Why start with something that is low grade and cheap, essentially, for the sponsor? If that fails, they have to go to rescue capital. Why not start, and this is rhetorical, by the way, why not start with rescue capital terms to induce or encourage limited partners to invest? And why would you want to do that? Well, because you're limited, but first of all, you're telling them, hey, for whatever reason, right? It's a mea culpa. We failed, right? Whatever happened, outside of our control, inside of our control, our business plan has failed. So your investors inevitably are going to be upset. Some will be angry. If you don't communicate, they will be angry. You have to communicate as a sponsor openly and with transparency to explain exactly what is going on. The more you communicate as a GP with your LPs, the more likelihood you have that they will invest at this earlier stage. And if you are a sponsor with high integrity, and this is something as an LP you want to be looking for, you want to know that your GP, the person you invested in, is of the highest integrity. And the way that they will show that is, one, through communication, and two, by offering you terms that go way beyond. And by the way, this is not necessary, but this is one way that a sponsor can demonstrate, hey, I'm really sorry this happened. Here's what we're going to do for you, LPs. We are going to give you all of our promote. We're going to reduce our fees, and we're going to offer you rescue capital terms to save this deal. Now, if you get that, and if it's in the context of a broader sequence of communication that's explaining what's going on, you're going to be more inclined to go with that sponsor. Just think of the extremes than if you get an email from them out of the blue that says, according to clause 3.1, you owe us $50,000 or we're going to dilute you, right? So this is how both sponsors and investors, limited partners, need to be thinking about the world that we are in now. This is, over here, we have the investor journey. This is the what I call the investor journey continuum, right? You're now being sucked into a vortex. And one of the key things, because there's no way out of this thing, right? The key thing to think about as an investor, when you are faced with a capital call, and I had a conversation with a guy the other day who actually is a conduit. So he raised money from 30, 40 investors to invest in a deal that is now failing. And he said, well, we want terms here that protect our original capital. As they say in Japan, dame. That's the term, dame. That is wrong. Don't think that way. New money, any new money that comes into a deal, you're being asked to put into a deal, absolutely, positively, has to be seen as a new deal. It has to stand on its own as an investment, not tied to the original capital you put in. If you get a capital call, you have to realize my money is lost. It's gone. If they want more money, okay, what are the terms that you're offering me for this new investment? Why do you have to think that way? Because that is what Rescue Capital thinks. Rescue Capital doesn't have this legacy investment. Now, at the end of the day, you could look at the returns on this new money, and let's say it's a 3x, right? And Rescue Capital returns are going to be very high, or should be very high. You can then blend that with the money that you had before, right? And so I'm putting 50 extra in now, and I had 50 in. So my overall return is going to be whatever the IRR is. It's going to be tiny because of time, right? The time impact on this. You can certainly blend that, but that new money, you've got to think about it as a new deal. You've got to underwrite it standalone and not think about protecting your original investment. All right, now I'm going to wrap up. I've no idea how much time I just took there. I'm going to wrap up with what we're doing and what we do. So we are talking to sponsors. I'm sorry, we are getting investors, limited partners contacting us saying, our sponsor's gone quiet. Please contact them, right? So I have some credit. If you run Adam Gower crowdfunding on Google, you'll get a sense of who I am. We're then contacting sponsors and saying, look, we're getting calls from your investors. You need to up your game. And we are educating them on how to communicate, getting them over that fear hurdle that is making them clam up, and advising them, actually building webinars for them and helping them communicate more effectively so they are able to raise the capital they need from their limited partners. By the way, the other reason that it's critically important to do that is that real estate syndication is a business. It's not a quick buck industry. If you look at it as a quick buck industry, you're going to lose money today. You'll lose money if you've invested. You've got to think long term. So the reason this is advantageous for sponsors to communicate effectively with their investors is that if they do that, they will develop and deepen the relationship that they started over here when they first pitched them in this kind of in the good times. And even if they do lose money or don't achieve the goals or targets that they had originally, they will survive the next time around. So everybody in this series that I'm talking to, and my own personal experience, understands sponsors who behave properly today and communicate effectively will survive through, and the next time the market comes up, those LPs will be with them again, perhaps even more so, because the second time that they come in, they'll know that that sponsor's been through. It's not going to make the same mistakes twice. Am I being thumbed? Do I need to wrap up? Is that what the thumb is?
No, just
Oh, right.
supporting the point.
The second thing that we are doing is, and this is really important because this is something that nobody really knows, mapping market terms. So by talking to as many sponsors as we are, talking to investors about capital calls that they've got, and conducting this interview series with seasoned professionals, we're able to map market terms. So what should you expect in a capital call? What kind of terms do Rescue Capital have? We're beginning to map that in the same way as crowdfunding mapped preferred returns, promotes and fees, etc. We're doing that here at GowerCrowd. We're also educating investors. Now, I can't advise on should you invest or not, but by putting this initiative together, this capital call or the syndication vault, I'm not sure what to call it. It's got to have some positive language on it, right? Otherwise, no one will want to know. But the capital calls and Rescue Capital series that we're putting together, we're providing enough information for investors to understand, is this throwing good money? When I get a capital call, is this good money after bad? Or another term, or is the sponsor just kicking the can down the road, right? If they're buying an interest rate cap for 2 years, all right, how do we know, right? Are they just, what happens in 2 years? Are we going to get another call? And the other thing that we're doing is we're also in a position to provide rescue capital. One of the advantages of having rescue capital come in, especially if a sponsor offers that. So, by the way, this is also thesis. This is the thesis. I want to be clear. This is a fast-moving market. This is what we're working on. But if a rescue capital fund comes in to a deal, that alone should give confidence to limited partners that their money is not good money after bad. Because a limited partner, anybody that has a day job who invested 25, 50 or 100,000 in a deal, they don't have the experience, knowledge, background or resources to properly underwrite this new money. Is this good money or not? So if a rescue capital shop does come in alongside those investors, you can look to that fund and you can say, okay, what due diligence did they do? And if they say, yes, we're in, and you're, as a limited partner, getting the same terms, that should bring confidence, elevated confidence, that maybe that capital call is worth looking at making the investment. All right. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm going to pull this back over here. So that's my, scratching my head at 2 a.m. What am I going to talk about? I'm sorry if it wasn't like down the fairway of what you're used to, but you're going to see more of this in the next few months, I guarantee. Oh, by the way, one last thing. Even if you have not invested in a syndication, have not got a capital call, don't get a capital call, whatever, guess what? This right here, Rescue Capital, this is a great option. You wanted alternative investment ideas, right? Liz, that was actually what you wanted me to talk about today. Investing with a rescue capital fund is an exceptional, opportunistic option for you, or exceptional option for you during what will be a period, forgive me for using this term, of wealth transfer. All right, that's it. That's my story. And I'm sticking to it. Yeah, Chris.
I found this extremely informative. And I also really like your teaching style. It's very dynamic, and I enjoyed listening to you. I had a couple questions, but honestly, you answered them in the end, mostly about the sophistication of the average limited partner is limited. And I think that's why a lot of firms might go for the rescue capital, because you're trying to explain something to somebody who's got probably a W-2 and is investing, like you said, 50,000, 25. They even might be an accredited investor, but they looked at the original terms and they don't know how to evaluate if they're putting good money after bad. But I guess what you're saying is that if you communicate this with the same kind of marketing that you did with your initial ask for capital, you could potentially get a number of these limited partners to pony up some more money. But you're also asking people with the limited amount of funds to do this, and asking a lot of these. I mean, assuming you've got a relatively large fund, a number of people have to agree to do this. Whereas it's much simpler to go potentially to some company for rescue capital because you're dealing with one.
Right.
person.
However, if you're in the business of real estate as a syndicator, you want
it's
to
not gonna
do
look
the
good.
best. You want to do, if you're in a high integrity
You want your
syndicator,
reputation.
yeah, you want to preserve these people who had confidence in you and trusted you and what you did and what you not promised, but what your business plan, everything about you, they came to know, like, and trust you. You want to do the best you possibly can for them, because that will demonstrate your integrity, but they will stick with you. They will accept if you're open and communicative. They will understand the challenges. They will understand the loss. And when you come back on the other side, Chris, and you got another deal that you want to invest in, they will be with you. You'll explain. We have a client, right? One of our clients, when you sign up on his website to learn more, the first email he sends you, I swear to you, first email he sends to you is, here's why you shouldn't invest with me. That's his first email. And he goes through how he made a mistake, how he lost money for investors when he first started. It's actually brilliant, because now he's actually a zero debt player. And he goes through this whole explanation. I don't use debt, so my returns are lower, but hey, guess what? We will never lose your money, right? Because we'll never be foreclosed on. It's brilliant. And that is why you, as a GP, you want to be focused on your investors today. Do your best, protect every single dollar as best as you can, even if it means going to rescue capital and bringing in capital alongside them. It will do you better in the future. And you've got to have a long-term perspective. Yeah, and I also, Alex has shown up as well. I don't want to hear from Alex, but go ahead, Chris.
Adam.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Alex, please.
Alex.
Yeah. First of all, Adam, thank you. And we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. Number one.
Thank you.
Number two, presenting today is very timely, because our community has just talked about possibly getting together as a community to bid out prospective projects or sponsors. And third, I appreciate the golden nugget that you had shared today, the opportunity to invest. That said, given your experience, what is the type of return, ROI, when you invest on the rescue fund?